All right. Well, today we have on Mr. Brett Geisler. He is the Circuit Court Judge of Carroll County, Virginia. Sir, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We were very excited. I think I can speak for both me and Ethan when I say we're honored to have you on today.
Yeah, I think we talked with Judge Harold and myself about the recovery court. What's that, a couple of years ago?
That was about a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
So,
That was a good episode.
yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah.
But today it's just you, and we want to talk about your story. So I always start the same way. Where did you grow up?
I grew up about 5 miles that way, and I'm pointing, I guess, north off of Route 100. Probably close to what we call Mitchell's Crossroad area. My parents had about a 50-acre farm, and they kept cows, and mother always had horses and animals, and huge pet lover, and anytime there was a stray somewhere, they'd drop it off. But yeah, you could almost see the back of my parents' farm on 100 from here, but grew up there. So didn't get very far. Went off to tech for about 4 years, and then law school, and then immediately came back. That's where it's from.
And your father was an attorney too, right?
Dad moved here. Neither one of my parents are from Carroll County. Dad moved here early 60s. He had just gotten out of law school. He was from far southwest Virginia, Lee County. And he had a friend, Dick Davis, who was an attorney in Radford, who was from Radford. They were friends at law school. And he asked, Dick said, "Well, Jerry, what are you going to do after law school?" And he said, "I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing." And Dick Davis said, "Well, Judge Ted Dalton, who's a federal district judge in Radford, might be looking for a clerk." So Dad came down and interviewed with Judge Dalton, and Judge Dalton says, I don't need anyone. I have all the clerks I need. But you know what? I have a first cousin by the name of Byram Goad, who's an old lawyer in Hillsville, and he might take somebody on." So Dad drove to Hillsville. Had never been here before, and long story short was Mr. Goad was probably mid-60s and sort of winding down, and took Dad under his wing, and that's how we got to Hillsville. Right. So you might recognize Byram Goad as he was a Commonwealth Attorney of Carroll County for years and years, big in Republican politics. His father was Dexter Goad, Dexter being the Dexter who was courthouse shooting. So that family is the closest thing I have to family here in Carroll County. But Geisler's a pretty rare name around here, so but that's here. But so been here ever since, other than law school and undergrad, and came back right out of law school. And I thought when I went to law school I was going to go to some big city and maybe practice law and do that. But I'd spent a little time away from Hillsville, and when I graduated I was ready to be gone and not really coming back. Not that I didn't find anything wrong with it, I just didn't think about it. But spent a little time in Richmond and some other places, and again, Dad said my 3rd year, he said, what are you going to do, son? What kind of job? I said, well, Dad, I've been thinking, if it's all right with you, maybe I'd come back here. And he was never pressured me, never anything like that, but said, yeah, I'd love to have you. So I was fortunate to come back in 91 and start practicing law. And with Dad, he had a little office on the side, and started there and practiced from 91 to 2003 until I took the job I have now, which is Circuit Court Judge. But that was always a wonderful experience to be able to work with my father, and it seemed like a long time at the time, but it really went pretty fast. But so that I've been here ever since now.
And did your mother work, or did she stay?
Mother was actually, she came back and started working for my father. Well, she never worked for my father, but she was his legal assistant and secretary. And so the dynamics was, I got to be there, work with both my parents for, and I think some of the other lawyers, Tom Jackson has tea with him. Andrea, Tim Talbert and Andrea, she practices with her father. Jonathan and Joe McGrady, they practice together. I'm trying to think if I've left anyone out. I don't think so. But so, in Carroll County, we have pretty good history of that sort of
Legal
connection to
families.
lawyers and their parents, and I know all those attorneys with their children and children with their fathers and mothers practicing law. They really enjoy it, and I know I've benefited greatly from my father and his experience. But that's the wonderful thing about being here and practicing law and being a judge here is this community is so well connected, and people help each other out, and the attorneys help each other out. I would not like to do this job in the big city. You just lose it. So, but that's the wonderful thing about being here for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I read recently when a local lawyer was admitted into the bar, he presided over their swearing in.
Okay, were you there, Brandon, I guess, or Brock?
Yeah, it was it. I read the article about it.
Okay, yeah.
You made a comment about how one of the best parts about practicing law in this area is the community, and how you just kind of know everyone, and you get to get that familial sense. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's the way we set up our circuits and the circuit court judgeships is in our circuit, there's 6 circuit court judges, and we're authorized to sit anywhere in the circuit, but we divide it up the way we want to. Usually the senior judges get to decide where they get to go. When I started out, I was the low man, and I just took over what Judge Mink had. He was the circuit judge before I got on the bench. And he had Carroll and Radford, so I naturally took Carroll. And so we have in our circuit, it's Carroll, Wythe, Grayson, Floyd, Bland, Giles, Montgomery County, Radford, City of Radford, and I might be missing another one. I don't think so. So it's a pretty big circuit.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to my father. I remember I'd been on the bench for a couple of years, and I said, Dad, I think I've got the best place, because I started in Carroll and Radford, the best place in the circuit to sit. And he goes, well, heck, son, you got the best place in the state. And, he believed that, and I believe that too. But luckily, over the years, we've added another judge, and so what happens, I just sit in Carroll now. I don't sit anywhere else, which is great. But the point I was making is, I think I'm the only one in our circuit who actually lives in the jurisdiction that I sit in, which a lot of judges don't do that for maybe obvious reasons. You're a lot of times you're not making people happy in this job, and that's part of the job. But and that can cause some conflicts. But it's never been a problem for me. I mean, I think that's the way it's people know me, and I know people, and I think it's the way you handle folks in court, and it's never been a problem. And I like that dynamic. I like being here, and I like being part of our community and being able to help them in this position. And to me, it's special. Downside is, you have conflicts. If I have people who I personally know and related to, or no, I don't hear their cases. People want to make sure, because if I knew one party and not the other side, people who come to court need to be sure that the judge is not going to be partial to one side or the other. And even if I tell them I can be, and if it looks like they feel uncomfortable with it, I'll get out of it, because they don't want to have to worry about that sort of thing. So, but I love being here. I grew up here, and I'll be 60 years old in I guess September. So, been doing it for a while, but I wouldn't want to do it anywhere else.
So you grew up out in like Route 100 area?
Yeah, 5 miles out of town.
Did you go to Hillsville Elementary School? Or?
Well, yeah, the old one here in
Okay.
town. So went there, and then went to Hillsville Intermediate. At the time, that was 7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
Okay.
You went to kindergarten, I think, through 6th at the elementary, and then high school was 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. We graduated in 1983, if I can remember right. So a little while ago.
Did you play sports in high school?
Played sports. I played football. That's what I love to play. Wrestled a little bit. Played golf. Back then, you could play golf and football, because we played golf in the springtime. So it was a lot easier, and then played football in the fall. But yeah, it was important to me. I thought I was going to go to college and play football and that sort of thing, but that didn't fall through, and it's probably a good thing. I was going to go to a little school, Emory and Henry, and play football, but like I said, that fell through. So ended at Virginia Tech, which I like. You know, as you talk to different people, and people are like, well, I want to go to a small school, and you get a lot more attention. And I always tell people, I picked Virginia Tech because it was a big school. And I liked that dynamic. I liked having, kind of being, knowing who you are. And I always tell people, I said, you could get as much help as you wanted at Tech or not. Right. It's up to you. And I enjoyed meeting a lot of my good friends I still have. I met there, and they were all from Northern Virginia or all different places. None of them from down around here. But I enjoyed that dynamic going to a bigger school. Not for everybody, but I really did enjoy that too, of course.
I'll agree with you. It's as big as you make it.
Yeah.
And you can reach out to your teachers and people. And
they're always available, and like I said, it's not for some people. Some people, I think they get there and they feel kind of lost because, we come from Carroll County, which is such a tight community and a small-knit community, and everybody knows everybody, but I like that, and I'm sure you understand that too.
Absolutely. Which program did you do at Tech?
I was a political science major.
Okay.
So all my friends were engineers and taking all the architecture and all the high-level math. I think I took math for dummies or something like that. So, but I was a political science major in history. I did, I guess, a minor in history, which
that's what I'm doing. I'm getting a poli-sci major in history.
Whatever I thought, I guess, was going to help me, I guess, in law school. And I tell people, any program that you're doing a lot of reading and a lot of writing, probably help you pretty well. Probably a philosophy class would probably help you a whole lot with that sort of reason. But no, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. When you were in high school, did you know that you wanted to go to law school and become a lawyer?
That's an interesting question because growing up with my father who was an attorney and in politics, people ask me why I became a lawyer. I'd say, well, I didn't really know anything else to do, sure. And I didn't know. I guess I knew that from what my father did. And honestly, it's hard to conceptualize what a lawyer really does until you're actually doing it. I mean, you guys come in court and watch what's going on, but it's really sort of an abstract notion. I do tell people, if they want to go to law school, you don't have to practice law. A law degree is an incredible thing. You can do all sorts of things with it. A lot of my friends who do very well have never been in a courtroom and probably never passed the bar, but again, back to my father. I have a brother who's with a firm in Abingdon, and he's a partner there and does really well, works his tail off and does the billable hours. I kind of wanted to do the general practice thing, and I could do that with being in Hillsville. And my father said, if you come back here, you'll be in the courtroom within a couple of 3 weeks trying cases. And sure enough, that was right. They put you on the court-appointed list, and they just throw you right in. And I remember the first case I tried was Jim Ward was Commonwealth Attorney, and Jim was up there before Judge Cooley, who was General District Court Judge at the time in the old courtroom. And I remember after the Commonwealth put on their evidence, Jim was telling me what to do, whispering. It was kind of funny, but a great guy. And Jim just passed away not long ago. But so again, coming back here provided a lot of opportunities that I don't think young attorneys would be able to have if they went somewhere else. When you're a general lawyer, a general practice in Carroll County and Hillsville, you do a little bit of everything, and that's kind of scary too because you got to know what you're doing. But our practice, my father and myself, we did civil work, we did real estate work, we did criminal defense. I was county attorney for a while. I think my father was town attorney way back when. Sort of a little bit of everything that you get exposed to, trial work and that sort of thing. So I was fortunate to have that, and particularly came in handy when I went to get on the bench. because you know, as a lawyer, you don't know the law. People think you know it all. But you know how to figure it out. You know, that's what they teach you in law school, and spot issues and that sort of thing. So with my general practice, certainly in the circuit court, that gave me the opportunity to be able to at least recognize the different areas of law. Because circuit court, we do everything up there. It's the main trial court in Virginia, where you have jury trials and you know, everything from murders to custodies to civil litigation, that sort of thing. So that really, I think, helped me in making the transition to the bench.
Well, I mean, last summer I got to see a lot of cases.
Yeah, you were with the Commonwealth Attorney's office. Yeah.
And I sat in for a day for a civil case, and it was totally different
Then the
than
criminal.
the criminal.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to see. I mean,
Yeah.
so.
And you know, it's as the judge, you know, you wear that different hat. It's the jury trials for criminal matters versus civil matters, and you know, right of way disputes. So you know, you touch everything. I mean, everything that comes up, the major litigation or conflicts come through the circuit court. So, and it's never a dull moment. That's for sure.
So after Virginia Tech, you went to Richmond for law
At
school.
T.C. Williams School of Law. I think they call it University of Richmond. That's right. That was 3 years. And my uncle and my father both went to law school there. And then my older brother went there, Byram, who named after Byram Goad, finished the year before I started. So that was a big change. Country boy, been in the big city again.
Yeah.
Like I said, my buddy from Philadelphia and everybody, they like to give you a hard time about your accent and that sort of thing, but I didn't care. I let them underestimate us folks, but it was good. But I enjoyed it. I like being in Richmond.
Can you talk about the dynamic difference between law school and undergrad?
Oh yeah, a lot more fun in undergrad. You know, I think, you know, undergrad, it was challenging enough for me. You do a lot of reading, writing, get to have a lot of fun and social life, and you know, I thought going to law school would be kind of the same. Law school's totally different. As we were talking, I don't know if you got this on tape, but you know, when you go to law school, your only grade in your class is your final grade, and you don't have quizzes, you don't have papers, it's all at the very end, and that's a little disconcerting, you know. So you better be ready, you know. So and I remember getting to law school when I swung by Virginia Tech. This is funny, and all my friends were. It was probably August or mid-August, and they were all getting ready to go to a football game and have a big time, and I think it was a Friday night or something, and I had my truck packed up with my stuff, heading to Richmond. I didn't know anybody, didn't know anything was going there. Like, hey, Brett, you just stay, we'll have fun. And I was like, oh no, I gotta go on. So I remember driving to Richmond, being kind of bummed out, and all my friends having a big time. I get to Richmond, they post at the law school your assignments for Monday. The classes start Monday, and I remember, you know, you got a bunch of cases to read, try to figure them out, and so they give you also buy a big Black's Law Dictionary because the whole language is different. You don't know what everything says. So I sit down with my assignments and read a couple of cases. I remember the first case I read, I had to stop probably every other sentence and look up a word in Black's Law Dictionary about what it meant. And of course, we didn't have cell phones back then. I was in a law dorm. I walked downstairs and picked up the phone, called home, and Dad answered the phone. He goes, "Well, how's it going?" And I said, "Dad, I don't know." I said, I don't really think I'm going to be cut out to do this." And he laughed real big, and he said, "Well, you know, you just keep at it." He said, which was good advice. He said, "You know, son, if it were easy, everybody'd be doing it. But you're not. They don't expect you to know all the language and all. But you know, what you can do is work hard and try to work hard and just hang in there. Everybody else is in the same boat, and just keep working on it." And sure enough, you know, he was right. usually was. But I remember, and I tell people, particularly first year law school, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be eating, you're going to be studying. You get up, study, go to class, study, maybe eat, study, go to afternoon class, study. If you're lucky, you can take a half an hour to go work out or do something, and you come home and you study all night long and go to bed. And that is what it is for you guys who want to go to law school. At least it was for me. And then on the weekends you study. All you're doing is reading and studying. And it takes a lot. I don't know if I don't know if I could do it again. I know I wouldn't want to do it again, but it's one of those things you do once. But it's a lot more work than undergrad is for sure. But I think I was so scared that I would fail that was what motivated me.
Right.
Just honestly, I wasn't worried about making good grades or anything else. I was too scared that they would say, "Well, Brett, you haven't. We're going to let you go home." So that fear is a huge motivator, particularly for me.
Yeah. When you were getting ready to apply to law school, what was that process like? Did you have to take the LSAT? Did you have to
Right.
take
Yeah.
essays for
I
it?
mean, I'm sure that being 35, 40 years ago, yes, you took the LSAT. I took it at Virginia Tech. I think I took it twice. I think I was average. I can't really remember that story, but that's another thing. Those tests are super hard.
Yeah.
And there's really no way, I don't think, to study for them. I'll only just try to get yourself familiarized with the multiple choice, and then I think they had an essay part. I can't remember if they had essay or not, just to tell you the truth. But so that was always interesting too. And then of course you apply to your different schools, and hopefully they'll let you in or not. But you say you guys are interested in maybe law school, both of you?
I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Okay. But it's a process. I'm sure it's a lot more expensive than it was when I was down there. Of course, I think it's probably $8,000 or $9,000 a semester, which probably is nothing compared to what things cost now. Particularly a private school, which Richmond is. You're probably looking at, I don't know, $40,000-$50,000 a year, I guess. I mean, it's crazy.
That's undergrad, yeah.
But in Virginia, you can read law. I don't know if you guys know about that.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Rakes, she read law here.
Really?
She's a local attorney, does an excellent job. And Carolyn Phillips, she's another gal who read law.
I didn't realize that was popular to do, or common.
Well, it is, and it's an avenue which is, if you were serious about it and you didn't want to go the regular route, and you could find a lawyer to try to help mentor you and get you through it. Well, I don't know. I would certainly think it'd be something somebody would look at instead of having all that debt.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So how did your first year of law school differ from years 2 and 3?
I think you have pretty standard classes that you have to take first year, and we were divided into 2 sections, A and B, and I think we had about 40 or 50 in both sections. You take the basic stuff, you like contracts, torts, criminal law, criminal procedure, civil procedure, that sort of thing. Then when you get in your upper classes, you get to kind of choose a lot of different things that you like to do. And the whole process after your first year, you've kind of figured out how it goes. You can maybe not be so stressed out about it, but it's easier. It's just like anything.
Yeah.
It's a little easier, but you have a little more freedom to choose what you want to do.
Did you have the opportunity to take a constitutional law class?
Oh yeah, I think that would be required at every law school. I'm pretty sure it would be. You have that, and then business law and things. But I don't know. I can't remember when I took that. But yes, I would say that the constitutional law has to be required for us.
Yeah. Did you have a particular course throughout your time at law school that you really attached to?
I kind of like the criminal stuff, and as we told you, I did real well in a criminal procedure class that I liked well. But it's there's one thing about law is it's very challenging, and they'll teach you, when you're doing your exam or taking your exams, a lawyer, professor will call you up, cold call you, and you've read your cases, and he'll ask you what the case stands for, what the holding was, and why the holding was in a certain case. And then he'll just, as soon as you try to tell him why, he'll say, well, why are they wrong? Or why are they right? Because you have to argue both sides of those issues, and being a lawyer, you have to recognize both sides. And so they're trying to prepare you to argue both ways and be very analytical at looking at issues and different positions. Because when you're a lawyer, your job as an advocate for people is to advocate for their position. Okay, and there's the nature of the situation is, you've got two adversaries, so you advocate for your client, and the other side advocates for their side, and then the judge gets to decide what it is. But you have to be able also to detach your own personal emotional feelings from a case, and so that you can represent your client the best possible way that you can. So that's kind of what they're teaching you in law school, anyhow.
You mentioned finding an attorney to mentor you. Were you able to find an internship during the summers, or did you work a regular job?
I came home and worked with Dad. I had the best mentor I could possibly ever have, who was my father. And Dad was old school. It wasn't like he was going to go take me. I remember coming out trying to figure out how to search title for real estate. But also, I tried to figure out the courts: General District Court, J&D, and Circuit Court. And I was like, well, Dad, so General District, when do they do this, or Traffic Court, or do that? And he goes, just go up there and sit and watch. You'll figure it out. I mean, that was my dad. That's how I learned. And he said, the best advice he gave me is go up there and talk to the clerks in the Circuit Court clerk's office. I will say something. He go talk to Jean Boland. Bless her heart. We lost Jean, unfortunately, in a tragic manner not too long ago. Jean was our criminal clerk. Just a beautiful person, and you could ask her anything, and she loved helping young lawyers and anyone else to help. And all the ladies in the clerk's office, from Carolyn Honeycutt, she was clerk when I got out of law school, and then I got to work with Carolyn as a judge. But go ask them; they'll help you out. And he says, don't get on their bad side, whatever you do. And that was good advice too. But Dad was kind of old school. He's like, he'd help me when I needed to, but he wanted me to figure it out too on my own, because I guess he knew that I'd have to one day anyhow. But he'd also, we'd talk about cases and things like that. And I remember one day sitting there with him, and I was worried about a case or something. I don't remember. I was probably out 3 years, and I was kind of stressed out about something or not. And he was sitting there looking at something, looked over his glasses at me and said, son, you're going to have to get a whole lot more tough skin than that if you're going to be a lawyer around here. And he's right. You have to get kind of a tough skin. Being a lawyer is the reason you exist, particularly if you've got a trial practice in a small town, is you're there to help people resolve their issues. Okay. And I tell my children, I said, girls, if everybody were able to work their problems and issues out, you wouldn't have a need for someone like me. I'd have to get a real job or something. But we people can't resolve their issues, and sometimes they just can't. And we have to be the people and the institution that helps people navigate that. And a lot of times, no one's happy if they have to go to court and litigate, and unfortunately that's the nature of the process. But what I can do and what I try to do as judge is remember that it gets routine for us because we do it like lawyers, and 35 years, it's all routine and it's second nature. But it's not routine to people who come to court. Right. People usually once, twice, maybe. It's a kind of a whole unknown world to people. So I, as a judge, I have to remember that. I have to remember that people don't come here all the time. They don't understand the process, and I need to try to do a good job of being patient and explaining that to people. And even though it is routine to me, this is their first experience with the courts, and I try to do that. I'm sure I get impatient. I know I do. I just ask my wife; she'll tell you. But we try to remember that, and I think we do a pretty good job. I would at least hope we do here in Carroll County.
So you spent around 10, 11 years as a practicing lawyer.
I've 12 years, I think I got to practice with my father before. I got back in 91, and then I got on the bench spring of 2003, April, so about 12 years.
Yeah.
Did you take some time between, I mean, how much time did you take after law school before
Oh
taking
gosh,
the
I
bar?
wish I'd have taken about a year, because I tell people, young lawyers I said, between law school and starting your life and practicing law, you've got all the worries of law school and the bar behind you. You don't have that, but you don't have all the stress and the worries of all your cases to deal with too. So you're right at this sweet spot that it's, as I call it, no worries. And I wished I'd take some time off, but I needed some money.
Yeah.
I was ready to, I was 25, 26. And I wanted to make some money. All my friends who graduated undergrad, they were already in their careers of 3 or 4 years. And, you're that age. You guys are that age. I'd like to have a decent car or some things. But I had some friends who took some time off. And, if you could, maybe take 6 months off, travel a little bit. But, everybody's going to be like, job. I got to get a job and all that. But I would say if you had the opportunity to do it, I would certainly try to do it.
And did you take the bar in Norfolk? Is that where they take it?
No, we took it in Roanoke, actually.
Okay, wow.
What was that process like studying for the bar? I heard it's pretty intense.
Oh, that was awful too. Other than first year, taking the bar was not that bad. Actually, the 2 months that you study for it again. So now you're at the end of law school, and you've got to study all those areas and be familiar with it. And I took a class, barbery class, that me and my buddies did at law school, and then it's every day. And I remember what happened to me one time was about probably a week before the bar. I started having this back pain. Long story short, I had kidney stones, and I went to the emergency room.
Wow.
And I remember first thinking, well, like you do in high school, or I might have to take this test. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go through this studying thing again. So I passed it, went and took the bar, passed the bar first time, thank goodness. And but that process, after you're done, you can stay. When we took it in Roanoke, you could stay in Roanoke at hotels and take it at the big civic center, but I chose to stay here and drive back and forth both days. It's 2 days. And one of my buddies, Tom Burris from law school, he stayed with me too. So we drove back and forth both days, and it was interesting. We thought after it'd be over, we'd have a big celebration and go out and have a big time. But I remember driving back to Richmond after it was over, because I had to move out of my apartment. We were just exhausted. We were just kind of spent.
Yeah.
And I just remember that feeling, being glad it was over, but I wasn't really celebrating anything. I kind of think I wanted to go to bed.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to get the results back?
Oh, that's another thing too. They're immediate now with the media and everything. You just look online.
Yeah.
All my buddies and stuff in Richmond and Norfolk and that area, they got them the day or so before us in the mail.
Ooh.
So, they're getting them, they're saying they passed and all, and then I don't know if I passed it. Finally got it, maybe a day or two after. It's about September.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And the joke was back then, if you got a small package from the Supreme Court State Bar, that means you passed. If you got a big package, it was another application to do it again. So I don't know if that was true. I got a small package. I was pretty happy. Mom and I had gone to the post office to pick it up. But yeah, now I think they just look it up or something like that.
We've interviewed a few different attorneys, and they've had some advice on this matter. But would you advise, if you want to practice law in Virginia, you go to a Virginia law school?
That's and Richmond, I remember they would pride themselves on the fact that that a lot of the lawyers who went to Richmond stayed in Virginia and practiced here. You know, I think, you know, of course, I would say, I don't know that, I think any reputable law school will help you. But, you know, they do, Virginia schools do probably focus more on Virginia law and what's going on here than maybe some other schools. But, you know, we have a lot of local attorneys who've gone out of state, and they seem to do, I can't tell any difference.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. I spoke to a couple of lawyers this past summer at Boise State, and one of the lawyers there said that in Louisiana they have a French law system as opposed to a common law system that the rest of the United States.
They probably do, because, you know, that area was, you know, settled by the French.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would not surprise me. You know, all our system is based on English common law and stare decisis and that stuff here. But that'd be interesting. That they probably got a lot of that influence in their particularly state law down there. That would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she practices now in Virginia, but she went to law school in Louisiana. She's in Radford, and I was just kind of curious what the differences were, and if you knew of any differences practically.
No, you know, I know that you know, our procedure classes, you know, you've got federal law and then you've got state law in the different states.
Mm-hmm.
In Virginia, you know, you had to, at one time you had to know criminal law and criminal procedure, civil law, civil procedure, and then equity, which equity has to deal with you know, divorces and right-of-ways and that. So you'd have equitable, substantive law and procedure. So in essence, you're learning 6 separate areas of law and procedure. They've combined the equity and civil stuff since I've gotten out of law school. But there's probably regional differences in different places. But if you take the bar review in Virginia, they help focus on what you're going to study or be on your bar exam in Virginia, and I think that's where it probably helps a lot.
Right. Yeah.
So at that point, you were done with your formal education. If you look back at your time at Carroll and Tech and law school, was there a particular educator that had a strong impact on you?
Oh, I don't know. You know, in being in the public schools here in Carroll County, you know, unlike my brother and sister who were honor students, I was known as the black sheep. So I was probably not as studious as I should be, and had that reputation. And Ms. Velma Horton, bless her heart, she was a guidance counselor, and Ms. Horton would say, "Brett, you're gonna have to buckle down and do better." And of course, Maeva Bass, I had Maeva as my English teacher. She was a great teacher. Coach Anderson, Lana Jessup helped me tremendously in high school and college. Those people come to mind. You know, you just list off so many of them. There is a good story. Mr. Lyles was our band teacher.
Yeah.
And being in band, we'd give him such a hard time, and it was so interesting. And between law school and undergrad, I had like a semester off or year off. I took a year off, and I taught 8th and 9th graders French at Woodlawn.
Really?
And I came back after about a month or two. They were wearing me out. I mean, and I came down and I sat in the school lunch table with Mr. Lyles, and said, "You know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I treated you that." And he just laughed because, you know, he knew we were. But yeah, that was interesting. I had graduated to Tech, and I'd been home, and I think I was waiting tables at Pizza Hut or something like that, and I get a call from A.L. Noblet. Mr. Noblet was the principal at Woodlawn at the time, and he said, "Brett, I've heard that you're home and that you've had some French, and we need a French teacher over." This was probably October. "Can you come talk to us?" So I went over there, and he interviewed me, and we talked about it. And I said, "Well, you know, political science major. I'm not an educator, and I took French. I can read it and write it, but I don't a little bit, but I can't really speak it. And I thought Mr. Lobut would say, "Well, we'll let you know," but unfortunately, he said, "Well, can you start tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, how hard could teaching 8th and 9th graders be?" It was definitely one of the most challenging things I'd ever done. But it was good for me. It was good because it gave me a whole perspective on what our teachers have to go through. And I heard later that that's one of the hardest grades to teach too, and I do not doubt it one bit. But I see the people I taught, see them all the time. I think Mr. Shoemate, Joe Shoemate, was one of mine. I see him at the middle school. I could list a lot of names, and I tell people I remember those guys who gave me a hard time. I can know the names that I can't remember, the ones I never had to fool with. But it was good. It was if I could write some comedy skits from what happened in those classrooms, it would be funny. But it was challenging, but it was a lot of fun too. But it gave me a real unique perspective on what our teachers have to go through, and it's not an easy job, that's for sure.
Do you feel like that experience made you a better lawyer or
Absolutely,
judge?
no question about it. Made me a better lawyer, better father, better parent. As I would tell people, I said, teachers, they're getting it nowadays they get it from the students, they get it from the parents, and sometimes the administrators. So, I saw it, and although we have great all the way around, it's hard to be a teacher, and a lot of crowd control going on in those classrooms. But I think you probably have to be born a teacher. We've got my stepdaughter is a teacher, and she's one of those people who just can take a class and do great things with it. But I think it was probably more punishment for me how I acted as a student in high school and intermediate, but I got through it, thank goodness.
You mentioned your daughters. How has being a judge affected your parenting, and how has having those daughters affected you being a judge?
I'll tell you one thing, that being a judge helps me, not just with my daughter, but my overall perspective on life is there's a lot of serious stuff that goes on in those courtrooms, and there's rarely a time that I don't come home and when I'm feeling like I've maybe down a little bit, or it just makes me recognize how fortunate I am to have family and people around me, and God has given me wonderful opportunities, and I had two parents who loved me and pushed me and cared about me and really invested in me to help me get to where I am now. And and I will talk about our recovery court. When we started that court, I was like, well, this is not going to help. These people, people have addictions and things. But, the more I do it, the more I recognize that Judge Harold, myself, and all the people on our staff, my attorneys, that, we can make a difference. A lot of people who have these addictions, they fought through these addictions from younger than you guys. They grew up in these situations. They're not like I grew up. I had parents who pushed me and cared about me and showed me, taught me, yet what's right or wrong. A lot of folks don't have that. And these people who are coming to our recovery courts, they're great. They're good people. They never had the opportunity for someone to invest in them, and show them that they can do it, or that So that's how that affects me. And doing that recovery court makes me recognize how fortunate I am that I have those people around me. So it's great to be able to give back and do that. But if your question was that made me, I definitely think what I do has a profound effect on who I am outside of the courtroom. How could it not?
Absolutely.
So after your decade in private practice, you became a judge. Was that something you always had in mind, or that just kind of
Yeah,
happened?
I really did. I really like being a judge much more than I like being an advocate. Or, as a lawyer, you have to pick one side or the other, and you have to advocate for that position. Being judge is you get to kind of decide what's going to happen, or what justice is going to be, and you don't have to pick a side. You have to make a ruling. But it's I like being a judge much better than that. That's for sure.
So, what's the process like to becoming a judge? I know you have to be approved by the General Assembly.
We are probably one of very few states that do not elect our judges in general election. You go to North Carolina, and they're running for every, from their general district courts to the circuit courts to the Court of Appeals, Supreme Court down there. They call them something different. And we drive them out there, you see judges advertising have to run, and you have to go shake hands. And
it's kind of odd.
It's totally political down there.
Yeah.
In Virginia, we are selected by voted on by the Virginia General Assembly, the House of Delegates, and the Senate. So it's still political. Don't let anybody ever kid you that or tell you differently. It's a little bit political, but we're insulated. I mean, and I think it's a much better system. You certainly don't want people who have contributed to your campaigns or stuff, things like that, as a judge coming in your courtrooms, although I think they have a way to handle that down in North Carolina. But we go up for interviews before the courts of justice. We have legislators who somebody sponsors you or puts your name on the list, and then you have to go up there and they'll interview you, and if both sides agree, then they'll put you on. In circuit court we have 8-year terms, so my third 8-year term will end 2 years, so I'll be 24 years. And decide then whether I want to do it some more or not. But we're elected by our General Assembly. It's an easy process. We're not appointed for life, not like federal judges, which is probably okay.
Yeah. And your father was in the General Assembly, correct?
Dad was in General Assembly. He served from 1965, the year I was born, until 81 or 2. He was one of 6 Republicans when he started. He got to be the House Minority Leader. I think they had about 30 Republicans when he finished in about 1980, 81 or something. I was a sophomore, I believe, in high school his last year. And he enjoyed it. He liked doing that, but I grew up in that sort of dynamic, and then that's where I learned that sort of area of the law and politics through him.
And you went poli-sci in college. What did you ever think about running for Commonwealth Attorney or going?
I did run for Commonwealth Attorney, lost. I ran, and Mr. Goad, Greg Goad, was Commonwealth Attorney. I think that was 95 or 4. Ran in the primary, and of course I lost to Greg, and I was wet behind the ears, but I tried that, and that was interesting. I enjoyed that. I did, and you guys might be too young to know, I ran for the House of Delegates in 2001.
I didn't realize that.
And, at the time, the seat that I ran in was the eastern part of Carroll all the way down to the city of Martinsville. And they had just redone that district, and it was kind of, they couldn't find anybody to run in that district. And I was at the time the chairman of the Republican Party, and they kept asking me, and I said, well, shoot, if we can't find anybody else to run, I guess I'll run. And I carried Carroll and Patrick County, but of course, a lot of the votes were in the part of the city of Martinsville, and that, so I lost by about 1 or 2%. But things turn out the way you do. Dad would have told you, and Tom Jackson and all our folks who serve in the legislature, there's a lot of sacrifices. You have to go to Richmond, and you leave your family. I remember as a child, my dad going to Richmond every January and February, and and mother being back here taking care of 3 babies, and his law practice suffered because of it. But I lost Commonwealth Attorney, lost that, but fortunately, things turned out the way they're supposed to. So I got to meet a lot of good people doing it.
You mentioned earlier that you were county attorney for a couple of years. What was that process like?
We were selected by our board of supervisors and that sort of thing. And that I think right now the county employs a firm out of
It's Christiansburg, I think.
Christiansburg, Sands Anderson, who they do all of it. Back then, it was a local attorney. I think Philip Jones did it for a while. Brad Dalton, who's general district judge. Brad, we local guys did all of it. But with the growth of our counties and the complexity of things now, they certainly have to have more people doing that kind of job. But it was interesting. It was pretty difficult. The whole area law that it was, you represent social services, the school board, the county. So it was interesting, but I was glad I got out of that too. So
how long did you do it? 4 years?
I think I did it for probably a couple years, just to be honest with you. I can't remember. That was probably 98, 99, something like that, I believe.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're a judge. Can you talk about your first day on the bench? What was that like? Was it?
Oh, I was scared to death. Judge Mink was the circuit court judge that I practiced under, and so he had been the circuit court judge since '83, and I get back in '91. So to me, he was the deal.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, for all intents and purposes, he was the judge that everybody knew of. He's still alive, great person, super patient, very humble, just an incredibly nice guy. He didn't throw his weight around or anything like that, and I tried to be a whole lot like him. But no, when you're a lawyer, you don't look up on the bench and try to concentrate on what the judge is doing. For example, running a jury trial or something like that. So all of a sudden, you had to switch gears to sort of help you focus on how to do that. And that was the good part was I'd been in court, and then I had touched all those areas, so I knew how it worked. Right. But the nuts and bolts of taking a guilty plea on a criminal case or running a bench trial or a jury trial, you don't really know. And I thought to myself, and I tell young lawyers this now, I said, well, go back there and pull. We have to record everything in circuit court, all our criminal cases. So I just pulled one of the old jury trial that Judge Mink did, and I just listened to how he conducted himself and did it. And I had a couple pages, a bunch of notes when I first got on the bench. So that's how I got used to it, and it is scary, but I remember if I couldn't figure something out, I'd take a little break and go back and say a couple prayers, which really helped. I don't know if they helped or not, but I felt better after I did it, and it's still challenging. I can tell people now, I said, 95% of it is fairly routine, but 5% of it keeps you pretty hopping. Mm-hmm. And it's serious business. You've got people's lives at stake, so you want them to understand and know that you're taking their issues and problems seriously, because, as I said earlier, it's their only day in court, and they're relying on you to get it right, particularly if you have a case in which someone's family has suffered, and they're unfortunately their family's a victim of some sort of violence, or they expect someone to put the time in and make sure that justice is done, and you want to do that. You want to get it right.
How has your tenure on the bench evolved over your past 20-year career?
I don't know. We're lucky. My colleagues, Judge Harold and myself, were probably pretty close. I don't know. I will tell you, it's funny, when I got into the job 23 years ago, all the players around you change after 22 years. Yeah. 2 new clerks, 2 new sheriffs. The whole staff in the clerk's office is different. The sheriff's department, they're all different. and that happens in every courtroom. You go from being the new person and all these people who have been in that institution and been there forever and looking up to them, to the person that now you're the oldest one there, and it's just a process that we all go through life. It's just where you find yourself, and taking on that role of being able to answer some questions or figure things out because you've seen them before. But that's the biggest change, just seeing the characters change. And I started practicing law in the old courthouse, which I love. I mean, I wish we could still do that. That's a whole nother can of worms. But and now we're in the new complex, so it just evolves. And after doing this for 35 years, things change. I find myself thinking about my father. I'm older than my father was when I came to practice with him. I remember my mother saying, I was 25 when I got out, and mother said, well, your father's so glad to have you back to practice. He's getting a little tired, and it's good to have some new blood here. And he's just really glad to have you back. And I said, well, how old is Dad now? She goes, well, he's 56. I'm 60. So, it's, I'm sure your parents will tell you it's going to go by fast. And, he was right. They were right. Golly, it has gone by fast.
Have you found yourself to be a mentor to other judges or other lawyers in the
Well,
community?
we do. They ask us from time to time to help mentor new judges. There was a judge up in, I believe, Tazewell and some. So we try to do that. And, of course, in our circuit, we do that anyhow. Right. We try to take the new guys, and if they have any questions, I must have been on the phone with Judge Mink and Judge Turk all the time. And, we still do that. We can talk with each other about cases and things, but not really supposed to talk to anybody else. But we all try to mentor each other, and it's great when you can have someone to bounce things off of. I call Judge Harold. He's a genius when it comes to. He's a really super smart guy, and all our judges here in the circuit. I mean, I like to think that most of them get there because they do have the gray matter up there. But we try to help the new ones out, and I think the Judicial Council said we need another new circuit judge for our circuit, so maybe we'll get another one. Who knows? And they'll come on, and we'll do. I tell the new guys, just anytime you need anything, just call me up, and we can figure it out some way.
Me and Ethan, Judge Showalter agreed to an interview.
Okay.
But schedules didn't permit at the time. But we've had the pleasure of sitting there on his court a few times. But I've got to meet a few of the judges on the circuit.
Judge Showalter's a great guy. He's from over in Blacksburg. Funny guy. So, but it's interesting.
Have you found the life of a judge to be more stressful than the life of a practicing attorney? Or other way around?
For me, I don't think. I think it's both. I think they're both stressful. Yeah. Involve a lot of stress. And it's because of the nature, as I like to say, you only exist, particularly if you're a trial judge, you only exist because you're trying to help people solve problems. Yeah. And it's unfair to your families, I think, in my case, in my father's case. You come home, you've been dealing with issues and problems of people all day long, and when you get home, the last thing you want to talk about is your personal life and those issues, and that's not really fair to a wife or a spouse. So that is stressful. But that's sort of the nature of the job too. I mean, it's part of it. But I find that being a judge is less stressful in some ways. You're insulated a lot of the time from the public. People have to have their if you have something pending in court, you can't just call the judge and talk to them. You have an attorney you have to go through. But if you're a practicing attorney, your clients will call you and they want to know this or what's going on with it, and that's natural. But you've got a lot of people pulling at you and tugging at you and wanting to have answers, but you don't have so much of that as a judge, just to tell you the truth. So that gives you a little more clearance too, and it insulates you a little bit more.
Does the dynamic change between you and other members of the bar once you become judge?
You know, we all have our roles to play. I would like to think, and this comes back to what we talked about, being an attorney and a judge here and in this circuit, in this county, in this town, is we're all pretty close. I have a job as judge, they have a job as attorneys. We all respect each other, and I think if you understand that kind of dynamic, it's okay. My father is a great mentor, not just for me as being a lawyer or judge, but just being a person. When I got on the bench, we had the swearing in. You put your robe on you and that sort of thing. He did that for me, and I remember him saying, "Don't get too big for your robe, son." And he meant that. It was funny. Everybody laughed, and if you knew my dad, you know he's pretty witty. But he meant that, and he would always talk about, son, just because you're the judge and you wear a black robe doesn't mean that you have to treat people a different way or that you're any different. When I'm in the courtroom, I expect people. I don't expect people to respect me as a person. I expect people to respect the institution, and I try to be a lot like Judge Mink and my father. Everybody deserves respect in my courtroom. Just about everybody. I try to treat people that way. And I think people, even though they've made some bad decisions or they find themselves in some difficult situations, people always respond well, that if they feel like they're being treated with respect and they're being treated fairly. And so that goes a long way. Outside of the courtroom, the lawyers, call me Brett or whatever, and people call me, and I don't, in a way that was, I enjoy that dynamic. I like people having that personal relationship with people. But great place to be a lawyer and be a judge, and lawyers know my door's always open. You don't have to go through a bunch of people to get to me. Heck, people know where I live. It was funny, they told us, don't be careful about who you see and what you're doing. And I live in a small town. Yeah. Everybody knows who I am and where I am, so it's not like Alexandria or something when you've got 15 judges in one courthouse and no one knows what you look like or anything.
Yes. Yeah. So. Speaking of being in a small town, you work out at the Wellness Center a lot.
Oh yeah, I tried to. Been there ever since they built the thing.
Yeah. Do you use exercise as a way to deal with the stress of daily life?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I've gotten in a routine. I try to go every day if I can. I do the elliptical. I used to run a lot, but can't do that much. But the elliptical, do that, and try to stay in decent shape. And I've always done that. Did that when I was in undergrad and did it in law school, and just a real good thing to get it in routine of doing it. And it's a good stress relief. Yeah. When my stress relief when my girls were little was that I'd come home and it'd be instant stress relief. But they're gone now in college, so I would recommend somebody to do that sort of. I could probably eat a lot better, but that's something to work on.
The Rich Podcast had the pleasure of attending a recovery court meeting, and exercise was a major component of that. And I will say that workout was hard.
Yes, it was.
As me and Ethan, I thought we were been athletes in high school, so I went in with the attitude that we were. But it was challenging.
Yeah, we looked at each other and we were like, "What did we get ourselves into?"
But it was good, and that seemed to have a kind of a group dynamic to it. It was a good atmosphere.
We're really excited about our recovery court, and we're really different. And I give Judge Harold a lot of credit. He's very big into cross training and that sort of thing. But it gives us the opportunity to really have some quality time. If you're sweating and struggling and about to die with somebody working out, you get kind of close, and it gives me the opportunity to talk to those people individually, and I think it gives them the opportunity to see that we really care about their rehabilitation, and that we're not just doing this just for anything, and it gives you a real chance to build some bonds with people and help them out. And we're real proud of our recovery court. We've helped a lot of people. It's not near enough, but we're doing whatever we can do, and I think it's paid off some big dividends.
Okay. The group reading at the end, I thought was pretty special too. Can you comment on that?
I think Judge Harold read from Meditation by Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which I'm reading now.
It's we're trying to give some advice and words of wisdom and encouragement to people, and like I said, people who come from pretty desperate situations. If we can get them thinking about that life doesn't have to be that way, that they can gain some control over their lives and live a life that is different other than addiction, and give them hope. And hopefully when we get them in our program and get them there, they see that they can do it. And as I tell a lot of those people, I say, you don't want to live your life in which some judge or somebody's deciding what happens to your life. You don't want that. Don't give that control to anyone. Don't give it to any. You're born free in this country, in this world, and when you make bad decisions and stupid decisions, then you're just handing that over for someone else to decide what your life's going to look like. And none of us should do that under any circumstances. So we try to give them a little bit of encouragement. And Judge Harold's a deep thinker, probably much deeper than I am, but does a great job at it. But I think as a group of people trying to help some others, I'm real proud of it.
As we're wrapping up here, we always have a series of questions. If your family's listened to this, your daughter's in 50 years, what do you want to tell them?
Oh, you guys got some good questions. I would hope that they would understand and think that I tried to do good things, and I tried to treat people well, and I tried to help. I'm by no means a perfect person myself. I've made mistakes. We all do, and we should try to learn from our past and our experiences, and try to forgive people. But I would hope that they would be proud of what I am and who I am and what I tried to do while I was here. As Dad, my father would tell me, after 10, 15, 20 years, people aren't going to know who you are, and that's okay. I don't feel that that's not that important to me. I just want to I just want to hopefully be able to have been known for being fair to people, that they had their opportunity to be heard in my courtroom, and that they thought that even if maybe they didn't prevail like they thought they did, that at least they had someone who took the time to really consider their situation and tried to do the best they could do to be fair and help them out. That's important to me. And the people in our recovery courts, if I can help them, if they can look back one day and say, you know what, Judge Harold and Judge Geisler and all those people, that was a turning point in my life, and I am much better off, and I've gotten my family back together. And if people say, they really were instrumental in helping me do that's what means a lot to me, or everything to me.
And then next question, what advice would you give to someone who's looking into pursuing a career in the law?
Get involved. Study hard. Everything we tell everybody, make some connections, meet people, get involved politically, either side, it doesn't matter. It depends on how you believe and what your beliefs are. Make friends and acquaintances. Always remember that we all have different opinions, and we're not supposed to agree on everything, and we can disagree respectively in a respective way. We see a lot of problems with that too, but just get involved in things. And if you go to law school, you don't have to practice law. That's a stressful way. You can go into banking, or you can go into trust, insurance, I mean, you can touch all sorts of areas that lawyers can make a living at, but that's always a avenue too. But I guess that'd be the best advice.
And my next question runs along the same veins as Ethan, but it's more broad. What advice do you have for young people just making their way in the world in general?
Put those phones down. You know, we have, and this is what I've told my girls too. I said, I grew up in a time that I don't think you guys will ever understand. And that was a time in which your parents told you to get out of the house, and they didn't know where you were from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. And they trusted that, and you had the no one knew who you were or what you were doing or what was going on, and you had to go ask somebody or talk to them face to face to know who they are. Right. Now, by those phones, we have 24/7 access to anyone at any time, and we think that if we send a text to somebody and they don't get back to us in a half an hour, that something's wrong. And that's just our technology. And I tell people, I said, you know, it'd be nice not to have a face page, or somebody not know. Be that kid. I told Ava, my youngest, be that kid that nobody knows who you are. You know, you'd have to. Who's that? I don't know. She's not on Facebook or Instagram or who knows. But I'm also understand that I'm 60 years old and that's not how the world works anymore. But try to make your personal contacts with people. Shake their hands, look them in the eye, and talk to them that way. I guess that would be the only advice. This world is changing and it's so fast paced. I remember my grandfather telling me he died in '88, and he was talking about all the things he'd seen in 100 years, from televisions to going to the moon to satellites, and at the time microwaves and VCRs and that sort of thing. And he told me when I was your age, talking to him, and he's in the hospital, he said, there's going to be so many advances that you're going to see in your life. That was 40 years ago, and he would just with the internet and just AI now. Yeah. We were talking at our conference last week about AI, how it's going to revolutionize the practice of law. And you guys have to think about this if you're going to law school. Mm-hmm. What would have taken several hours to research it, you type it in AI, it's there, at least at that level. So that's going to have a profound effect on the practice of law. I don't even understand how it's going to happen, but that's something you guys are going to have to deal with and figure out. And my days or years are not too many, but you guys are at the very beginning of that, and it is going to look into that. It's going to really affect the whole practice. It's going to affect everything but the practice of law. But I did see something that said, one area that you can't replace would be lawyers, but probably who knows what's going to happen.
Changing robots in the courtroom.
Yeah, well, I saw something. Some guy had some AI lawyer he conjured up, and the judge got mad. And I have to be careful because the pleadings and things. What I see, I get some stuff that is pretty technical stuff. I'm like, wow, and I'm like, I wonder who wrote that, but who knows.
Our last question is a bit deeper than some of the other questions we've asked, but what is the meaning of life to you?
Oh. Family. Your family. I think if you have your family and you have your health, you have everything. My children, my stepchildren, my wife Laurie. I'm fortunate that we have Laurie's mother who lives in our back house, Manna. My stepdaughter and Tessa and her 2 children live beside us, Violet and Tessa and Lucy. But that's everything. You have your family and you're close and you have those great relationships. My 2 daughters, I love them more than anything in the world. I think if you have that, you have everything. And really, there should be no issues which should come between you that people can't work out. you know, in this day of age, I think there's a tendency to if you don't agree or don't see things eye to eye, to just sort of cut people out and off. I mean, I think that's a horrible thing. I think it's horrible for your relationships. Doesn't mean that sometimes it's not warranted, but those situations are very few and far between. But I think if you have your family and your health, I think you have everything. And that, to me, coming home and having that and having those relationships, you have that, you've got everything. So.
Well, sir, thank you for coming on today. It's been an honor.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys very much for having me, and you know, you're more than welcome to come to the courtroom and hang out with us and see what we have to do. We can't pay you, but you can come watch and see what's going on.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay.